What up?
Travis Porter, Quezio the Black Ball.
Got the foo-foo.
No, but you can't do it like this.
Quez, Ali, and Strap the Fool, aka Travis Porter. What happened to this once promising hip-hop group? Today's feature is a trio that were the hottest upcoming southern group in hip-hop that some say are responsible for the popularity of the twerk sound. Travis Porter back in the days were actually the first rendition of the trio hip-hop group that led way to an act like the Migos. They were the first Migos. Could have been anyway, but due to a few growth stunts, had their sound hijacked, formula recreated and done better, and eventually faded into obscurity as today's 18 to 30 couldn't tell you who they were or a song heavily spun by the group. But in I'd say 2010 to 2013, you couldn't grab the aux cord on the way to the club or function and not play some Travis Porter. When you got there, it was a good chance their music was being played loudly there as well. Songs like Make It Rain, Hey Ladies, Bring It Back, Go Shorty Go, and even Black Boy White Boy were go-to tracks that for sure got any party moving, and had they be released as new songs today, would be certified hits in this climate. Even their featured songs, for example, Walked In by past Stunted Growth feature and one of my all-time favorite rappers from that era, Bankroll Fresh, went hard as it seemed the group couldn't miss. Quez, to me, always had that classic hit song voice and cadence, with being the more surefire to blow had he come out as a solo artist. Strap the Fool had the look of the rapper in those times and of the future, and Ali had superstar personality and brought the fun to the group. Together, they formed seamlessly to make one of the best upcoming hip-hop acts with the potential to have been what a group like the Migos are today had they do a few crucial things different and a few other things that maybe was out of their control. In anything, it's what happens to the first to lead the charge. They receive all the arrows and have the biggest chance of failure should they make the wrong steps. Unfortunately for Travis Porter, poor choice steps were made at the wrong times as their potential slipped away and other artists after them learned their mistakes and found solid ground. They still make music today, releasing another album in 2021 called Travis States behind lead single Rappers and Scammers that should have more traction if attention was paid to it. But that's exactly what happened to Travis Porter. When you lose the attention, no one remembers you laying the blueprint. What happened? Salute to T. Anthony for this request. Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth Music. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. You can also send a super thanks by clicking the button below. Enjoy the video. Around 2007-2008, a group called the Hard Hitters from Atlanta, Georgia formed featuring stepbrothers Ali and Quez and friend Strap. Later, they changed their name to Travis Porter to help marketability, and that in itself elevated them to a new level. By 2010, they were household names in the urban hip-hop community, right on the border of becoming national stars. Their songs Go Shorty, Hey Ladies, Black Boy White Boy, and the controversial All the Way Turned Up, featuring Roscoe Dash, who later claimed he made the song and featured Travis Porter, who then placed the song on their album and confused fans as to whose song it really was. Of course, Roscoe Dash would remix the song with Soulja Boy and take off on his own, arguably off the buzz Travis Porter gave him. As independent artists, the group were constants performing on unsigned hype stages, hosted by giants like Drake and BMI, MTV, and held as MySpace's #1 unsigned group. Gucci Mane and other artists showed interest in signing the trio, but in the end, they chose Jive Records as their major label and were on course to finally take off. Stunt number 1, label falling apart. You hear all the time the demise of an artist due to the business side of the music industry not being completely together long enough to get the artist where they could survive whatever's going on behind the scenes. Travis Porter's Growth Stunts pretty much all stem from this being the case. In 2011, in the prime of Travis Porter blowing up, their label Jive Records, who signed them after a bidding war in 2010 and understood the plans for their future and their artistry, were disbanded by parent company RCA Music Group, causing all the artists to move over directly to RCA. At this point, 2010, Travis Porter had one single out from the album called Make It Rain that they would have hoped contributed heavily to their release. Because of the disbandment right in the middle of promotion of this song, a second single was released in 2011 called Bring It Back, and a third in 2012 called A Ladies right before their album May 29, 2012, 2 years after the heat of their wave. The album still did well on the charts, but not as successful as it could have been had it been released earlier, but out of their control due to RCA. Their new label weren't familiar with Travis Porter and how they wanted to be presented, and it caused disagreements going forward. The label wanted them to cross over and be more pop flavored and palatable, but Travis Porter wanted to continue doing it how they felt comfortable as the two sides drifted further apart. The group started to relax into hiatus mode, even separating physically, moving into their own living spaces and starting new lives. Stunt number 2, going solo. With the new alone time away from one another for really the first time in their career, and a label placing them on the back burner because they weren't equipped to handle the group at the time, Travis Porter had huge decisions to make in an attempt to regain the attention they once had. As every group will face all throughout their career, fans taking a liking to one of the members and itching for a solo album from them. Travis Porter were no different, though maybe they made the choice a little too soon. I understand the move because they needed to do something noteworthy in those times to get their name back in rotation, and the biggest news of any group can be their disbandment or them going solo. Porter attempted to focus on solo work in the time their label tried figuring out what to do with them, and it didn't work. For one, they've been doing music together for so long that working on entire songs for themselves showed to be a lot different and take a lot longer to produce. It also wasn't as fun as it was together when the chemistry was right as it was before. This basically led to random singles here and there from each, leading into a sync in hiatus mode for the next few years. Their close friend Bankroll Fresh then dies in 2016 and kills their spirit, as they say in their No Jumper interview, making them not inspired to do music at all. An album wouldn't come from the trio solo or together for the rest of the decade. Enough time to completely fall off and others to take their lane completely. Stunt number 3, the Migos became them. In saturated industries like sports and entertainment, making the wrong steps can bury you behind the heaps of others that look, sound, and have talent just like you, possibly causing you never to return to the front of the pack. They usually call this place the underground in music. For some artists, underground isn't so bad. It's a place true hip-hop fans spend most their time and give most their respect anyway. But for other artists that had the potential, talent, quality, and opportunity to be front line of the pack and receive the bulk of the attention, underground is not somewhere they prefer to be. Tech Nine wouldn't be Tech Nine if he was in Jay-Z's lane. And what would Jay-Z be if he never received the frontline recognition he did back in the 90s and early 2000s? AZ, Jazzo, Travis Porter were poised to be the it group of the swag era, but were trailed heavily by groups mimicking their style and learning from their mistakes to help polish what they did. One group quietly on their heels and closing in fast in the early 2010s were the Migos. Also a family knitted trio coming up in Atlanta that had to have noticed what Travis Porter were doing, but added a little more sauce to their look, sound, and hustle, and before you know it, they took over and would become what Travis Porter had the chance to. Of course, this was springboarded by an underrated factor in fame that cleanly severed the gap between the Migos and Travis Porter: the stimulus package. When an on-fire artist does a song with a lower tier or upcoming but unseen talent, causing them to blow as well with the light brought to them. Chief Keef and Kanye West, Kid Cudi, Jim Jones, Soulja Boy, and pretty much every other artist, and Drake and the Migos, after hopping on their song Versace in 2013, sending the song through the roof and on the charts. A song Soulja Boy first had the beat to way back in 2011 and even made a song to it.
Draco, bruh.
This was a year after Travis Porter released their debut album From Day One that charted 16 on Billboard and number 2 in hip-hop albums. The Migos made the right steps thereafter the Versace song and Drake co-signed and filled all the spaces in hip-hop Travis Porter should have throughout the rest of the decade. They were flashier, came with a new sound, and were beginning to receive major cosign after Drake. Now at festivals and interview bookings, the Migos seemed a more exciting choice, and Travis Porter fans followed suit. It wasn't difficult for fans to leave due to Travis Porter's untimely hiatus, solo effort, and passing of their friend Bankroll Fresh, but it was a point most those fans wouldn't return. All in all, Travis Porter were still an exciting group that made some cool party songs back in the day. They were never the best rappers alive, but they had their own lane and opportunity to be a lot bigger than they became. For these reasons, their growth was stunted. It's your boy JC, Stunted Growth Music, and I'm out.